Alexander Godricson yelled as the dull side of Sir Preston's blade slapped against his repeatedly.
Father, stop it! Why are you doing this?
Don't you know who this is? You deserve a spanking for this, you...
The crowd began to laugh as Sir Preston chased his son around a small open space. Finally, Alexander slipped as he ran and fell face first back into the mud where he'd fallen off of his horse earlier on. Alexander cowered in the mud as Sir Preston raised his sword menacingly toward his son.
I have half a mind to spank you till your cheeks bleed. I ought to bully you the way I've heard you and your brother bullied the good people of this city. I've had enough of your criminal nonsense. You are not above your grandfather's laws, and riding your horse this far into the city is forbidden. I swear on my father, I'll lock you in the dungeons myself if you ever try to pull this crap ever again. You hear me?
Yes, Father. I hear you. I hear you. I'll never do anything like this again. I promise.
Sir Preston scowled at his son, and then turned back towards Nathan and immediately bowed. Sir Preston's words left the entire crowd flabbergasted. His own guards scratched their heads, surprised by the great turn of events. Even Nathan himself never expected such a scene. From the moment Sir Preston appeared, his words were soaked in condescension, anger, and arrogance. Every word uttered by Nathan or his friends was met with a smirk or a derisive comment. But as soon as Nathan's name was uttered, he had completely changed in the blink of an eye, going after his own son and punishing his actions instead. Stewart quietly praised the heavens under his breath. Somehow, the conflict had stopped escalating. After the initial shock, Nathan's smile returned as he seemed to realize what had happened. He bowed back at Sir Preston, and together the two men sheathed their swords. When Sir Preston spoke again, he did so to all four of them.
You four, I apologize profusely on behalf of my disappointing son. I've already driven him back into the mud where he belongs. If he acts shamefully again or bullies anyone in this city, I promise you, I'll have him locked away in my father's keep.
Nathan's eyes fell on Alexander, who slowly got up out of the mud and trembled, whimpering under his breath. Alexander clearly believed his father's words were serious. Nathan exhaled and smiled back at Sir Preston. I thank you, good sir. Since you've taken it upon yourself to punish the offending party, I naturally shall think of this matter no longer. After all, Nathan gained nothing from forcing a harsher sentence on Alexander, and he had no real desire to go to all-out war with House Godricson, especially since they had already admitted wrongdoing and humbled themselves in front of everyone. Sir Preston's shoulders visibly lowered as he breathed a sigh of relief.
Wonderful. I'm so glad to hear you say it, young Master Hayfield.
The crowd gave a visible sigh as well once they realized their bloodlust would not be further satisfied. However, before they could dissipate, Sir Preston swiveled around towards them and shouted out for all the young spiritual fighting warriors to hear.
Everyone, heed my words. As young Master Hayfield here and I just showed you, Godric's land warriors must have each other's back during the Doom faction trial. All of the Kingdom of Calandria's eligible warriors will be in attendance. That means the strongest of the three other fiefdoms, as well as the royal family, will also be there. As Sir Preston continued his speech, his eyes drifted out over the crowd, then landed on his son Alexander. From this moment forward, our fiefdom warriors must stand tall and stay united in our efforts to pass the trial more than any other fiefdom. If anyone wishes to cause trouble against our ranks, even if it's my own son, I'll see to it that they are punished. Sir Preston then drew his sword in a mighty flourish before the crowd of young warriors, whose eyes gleamed proudly at his words. For the glory of Godric's land,
Sir Preston smiled at the crowd's overwhelming approval of his words. Although the speech was far from how he really felt, he knew the easiest way to distract attention away from his own embarrassment was to get his subjects fired up about the trial. He knew that their minds would dwell on the challenges to come, and not on the shameful display of punishment he had just doled out to his youngest son. In truth, he did not care much about the rambunctious actions of his sons, but as soon as he heard Nathan's name, he knew he had to take a drastic action to avoid nearly certain death. When he'd first heard Nathan's words, he'd been furious, after all. He was Duke Godricson's son, and he was determined to punish those who spoke ill of his family or his father's rule. But the mere mention of Nathan immediately brought him back to the last day of the aristocracy examination. As the Duke's son, Sir Preston had been the highest-ranking noble in attendance. He'd been amazed at Nathan's prowess then, and more than a little terrified of his brutally powerful spiritual fighting moves. He'd gone on to warn Roderick and Alexander to steer clear of Nathan Hayfield, for his strength was equal parts unfathomable and terrifying. Despite this, he knew that Roderick's schemes with the High Lord Raven and his sister Bella's insistence on marrying Sir Ian Lightstone caused a ton of tension between House Hayfield and House Godricson. He knew this issue perplexed his father, and Sir Preston did not wish to be the one to fling the conflict into open war, for the sake of his family and his own personal well-being. Besides, he'd overheard his father several times speaking to Hagar Haraldson, the neighboring duke's son. Hagar clearly favored Nathan and had firmly cautioned Duke Godricson not to move against Nathan as his daughter and grandson wished. In the private courtroom of the Duke, Sir Preston had watched as Hagar described in detail the extraordinary killing of the High Lord Raven and all of his men at the hands of Nathan Hayfield, thus confirming the rumors that had spread about the Demon Knight of Dunshire. Hagar Haraldson had fervently recommended that if the Duke did not wish to befriend House Hayfield, it would still be in their best interest not to offend them in any way. Sir Preston took this to heart as he motioned for his son to follow him back towards their keep and leave Nathan and his friends alone. Alexander had a tenderness inside of him that he often buried, but his father knew that his future could eventually be salvageable, especially after such a humbling experience. Sir Preston knew that his younger son could in fact make a great ruler someday. Meanwhile, he shuddered at how close he had come to losing Alexander. With only Roderick left as his heir, he would have worried about what the fiefdom might have become. There was no tenderness inside his eldest son. Sir Preston was smart enough to see their withdrawal from this matter as a victory, and knew that he would be sure to impress upon Alexander the importance of understanding which lords one could offend, and which ones he had to humble himself towards. Nathan Hayfield was most certainly in the latter category. For had Nathan pursued a harsher punishment for Alexander's actions, Sir Preston knew he'd have no choice but to honor that, even if it meant executing his own son. If all-out war had started between their houses, Sir Preston knew that House Lightstone would likely side with Nathan. In that scenario, there was no telling what might happen. All he could be certain of was that the future would be paved in blood and torment for all.
Wait, that's not the end. You've just had a free taste. Now get the full story on the Pocket FM app, link in description. Check out our next video and playlist, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.